Today we're going to talk about therapy. Such a wild topic, and we have so much to talk about it, but we'll try to keep it short today. So I was wondering if you want to share how was your first contact or like your first experiences with therapy?
My first sort of experiences was sort of before therapy really became, I don't want to call it mainstream, but you know
Viral.
how yeah, before it became something that just sort of everyone did. It was a weird experience. I was probably about 14 or 15 at the time, I think. I was having all these symptoms. I was like feeling nauseous all the time. And essentially my GP was like, yeah, it's mental. You need to go sort this shit out. So he referred me to a specialist, but unfortunately it wasn't like the best experience. He essentially just was like, oh, you grew up too fast. You were just like, you just need to suck it all up and you'll be fine. And I was like,
What?
okay, that's great. So like my first experience was like a traumatic one, to be honest.
No.
All these things and like trying to figure out, navigating life and being like a teenager and all that. It's all so much fun. But then having that like thrown at you and being like, okay, so there's nothing you can do for me. Hindsight, there's probably a lot that he could have done for me, and if I'd advocated for myself, it probably would have been different. But being, Asian and people pleasing and all that fun stuff, I was just like, okay, I'll just live with this. That was my sort of fun first experience. How was yours like?
Wow. I'm so angry. Fortunately, mine was better. I think I'm just one of the few lucky ones that found one good therapist and stuck with them. For me, it was I need help, and I was never a I need help person. I'm like, this is critical. I think I was around 18. Yeah, it was a surprisingly like pleasant experience, and like kind of like reaffirming that like, okay, I'm not crazy. The first sessions are always like background checks and history, but one thing I remember is that after I left my first session, I felt like my whole world crumbled. A new one began at the same time. It was definitely an interesting experience.
Was it IRL?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. What about you?
I've done that a few times, so you get used to it. And it's some parts like easier because if you really wanted to, you could just turn your camera off.
Since I've moved from Athens, I'm also doing digital. My therapist can read me from like the first second I joined. She can understand what is happening. What did you think therapy would be like and how it actually is? Like, did you have a different perspective from what it would be as an experience?
So you mean like before you went, right? And sort of like the image you had of it?
Both before you went and maybe at the first sessions of like the first period, which were like beginners in the whole thing.
I grew up in an era where therapy was like shamed upon. Only went if you were really, really struggling. So it was really weird how collectively as a generation, so many of us just turned around and went, hang on, this is actually kind of what we need. And making that change, and I was definitely part of that change. So after that sort of first initial momentary lapse of weird experience that I had, I obviously just walked away from it because I was like, fuck this. Like, if this is what it's like, I'm not going to be a part of it. I don't want anything to do with it. But then a couple of years later, it just became this thing where everyone took part. There was like a phase similar in a sense where everyone started getting braces to the point where it was like cool to get braces.
Yeah.
So I felt a similar shift in therapy as well, where everyone was getting their braces on, everyone was getting their properly diagnosed flavor of what they need to work on, essentially. And it became this thing where it was okay to go to therapy without it becoming like this thing of, oh, what's wrong with you? Also, for it to be almost cool to be working on yourself. It's one of the most powerful and best investments you can ever make for yourself. Going from the image of what I thought thought it was to actually experiencing it, finally finding a therapist who aligned with what I wanted to rediscover in myself and to work on myself, and being able to work with them through the things that I thought were just life and I was shrugging off. And I was like, actually, it's not normal. So let's talk through that. And being able to experience that in a positive way was probably the most powerful thing for my mental health and probably for my art as well in the long run.
I totally remember that phase where therapy, in a sense, it was also glamorized, but I think at the later stage, we're like the first generation that fought the stigma and normalized going to therapy. And I also resonate with the other side that, okay, I am in a society, in a family that is against that. I personally had to fight with my parents. I was like, I don't care what you say. When you want to go and do a cool piercing, but therapy, like, so yeah, there was a big contrast and I didn't know what to expect at all. But I think your experience was more contrasting because you had the first negative experience of that stupid, I don't want to go to more details around the adjectives I want to call that person, but yeah, many people have bad experience with therapists. They blame the whole field and not the specific therapist. So I think it was so brave and good that you said, let's give this a second try.
It was interesting. I think it's because I really needed it and because of the shift of where everyone was. It just made sense to me too. And like people around me were doing it. I was like, okay, maybe I should just give it a go. Your story with your parents is quite interesting, I think. It illustrates what we as a collective went through and the stigma around it. Quite a lot of us experience hiding it from people. It's not what it used to be. Like it's just so different now. And I love that for that to have that resource would have been a lot different, I think, but I'm glad to have it now.
Building the awareness means that you start having power over yourself and what you choose to do. So yeah, that's a big thread the whole society works. Did you feel like therapy could fix you similar to a regular doctor when you go and the issue resolves fast, or did you have a different perspective around that?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think to start off with, yes, definitely. I thought it would just be like, you go and you're like, fix me, here I am, go, essentially. I think a lot of us like hoped for that as well, right? And it was like, because it's such an uncomfortable thing to do, that surely it's something, it's like a switch that is meant to be pushed, or like a something that's meant to be flipped that makes it all better and it's all gone and all the worries are somewhere else. But yeah, but as soon as you go into it, you're like, okay, this isn't something that's just gonna change or get fixed or whatever it is you're there for overnight, unfortunately, although that would be so much easier and so fantastic, but it's not. So yeah, definitely before going in, it was definitely something where I was like, it'll be so much better once I do this one thing. But yeah, how about you?
I think because I was in a really bad state, maybe I just needed to see a big change in my life. Maybe it was me projecting that. But then you realize it's like, oh, this is actually the school of life. Did I just agree to invest my whole life into doing this? Because you kind of do when you don't know it. Like, I mean, if you want to be serious about the whole thing. And I think there is also a misconception, which I still see. You go to the therapist and they do something and they change you, they change the bad things that are happening or the behaviors, and it's like you do all the freaking work and you just get some guidance and maybe build some tools in the process, but it's it's mainly us doing the whole thing.
It's you, right? You choosing to go to therapy, it's you literally doing all the work, and it's you figuring out everything. And yeah, they give you hints along the way, but it's definitely a lot more you than it is them, and it is hard, but it's like so rewarding when you like see the progress that you're making.
Do you think maybe there was a period where you felt like therapy made things worse in a way?
Yes and no. I think like not so much the therapy making it worse per se, but I think for me, the sort of repetition of it, every week having to turn up and do this thing, like there are more weeks than there aren't where you're just not mentally prepared, or you just don't want to be there more often than not. And just working through that was probably the hardest for me personally, rather than the actual sessions and the things you talk within them. Obviously, there's some weeks that are really hard and really brutal, but the actual mental load of having to, whether it's your physical place that you need to go to, or it's turning on the Zoom camera, for example, one of the two, but either or, I think it's as hard. And just being like, okay, the next hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, I have to work on myself. And it is very hard, like leading up to it, especially, and obviously afterwards as well, like that sort of period, or like a day. Or I think I saw like a very relatable TikTok video where a girl was like, how are you guys like scheduling therapy sessions in like your lunchtime, because I need to like go home afterwards and like lie down and have a cry, like how are you guys doing it? And I was like, it's so relatable. It's like I don't function as a human being after my therapy sessions. Like how
Yeah, it's not like you go out for a coffee, It's like you fucking rip your heart out and your soul and get fucked.
It's like, I'll go to the gym, have a therapy session, go slay the world, and then leave peacefully. What?
It's like toxic productivity. And you just add the session there. No,
How about you?
I totally agree and resonate on what you said, for sure. Now I'm very seasoned in therapy, which when I share specific parts, it's going to be a more difficult session, let's say. I think also the part of when I'm in denial about something, and I don't want to talk about it or work around it. And it's like, but yeah, now it's the session and I have to. It's like, if I don't, I kind of self-sabotage. But if I do, yes, I'm going to cry about it for the next 2 hours, but it's going to help me. I think that's we have a choice, a very important choice.
It's not hard though, but yeah, definitely, I agree. It's interesting, right? It's like this huge part of our lives, and I don't think we talk like in general, we just don't talk about it enough. But it's hard, so it makes sense that we don't. But I think the more we do, the easier it will get as well. Not like what we talked about today in our session, sort of like, just these sort of conversations, I don't think we see enough of.
Like people sharing it on socials?
I think so. I think it still roots from that sort of like guilt / embarrassment / it's something you keep private sort of thing. And to some extent, I understand that, but it will make things so much more easier if you could just share parts of it that you're comfortable with, making that normal.
I think this might also be a cultural difference.
True.
Because I've seen both ends. Like the other end is like making the therapy an identity. I've also experienced that when I was younger, but I've seen it in other people as well, where it's constantly talking about psychology and over-analyzing and doing that as a conversational part. And I also realized it's like intellectualizing something that should be felt more deeply. That's like a very sneaky form of sabotage.
Yeah.
Because it's like going around in circles, but never actually feeling the whole hard thing. Like more like being a psychology student, rather.
No, yeah, I've seen that as well, definitely. Those things make it harder for us to, like normal people, to share it as well, right? Because it's like, it's almost like how it used to be as well. Exaggerated, glamorized part of it has like a life of its own, essentially.
I think it's normal because like therapy is kind of new. If you like compare it to how many years like humanity is alive, I think we just don't know how to do it correctly, or like be in the middle of those two in a collective sense. In a personal sense, I think it's super normal to go through those more edgy stages to find what works for us and what is avoidance, what isn't. That helps me go towards the next point, which is like What do you think has truly helped you? It can be tools, it can be like your perspective that changed.
Like lots, to be honest.
Yeah, I think.
But to me, yeah, bringing it back to sort of like what we talk about on this channel and being like artists and creators, and essentially my therapist one day was like, so what are your hobbies? And I was like, what do you mean, what are my hobbies? And she was like, you always talk about all these different things you do, you know, even like your job, which at the time was like very creative. She was like, they're all your work. Like they're all a job. They're not actually a hobby. They're not things that bring you joy because of the sake of them bringing you joy. There aren't things that you do to wind down. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? I like watch Netflix and stuff. And she's like, yeah, that's just doom scrolling, babe. Like wake up. And I'm like, oh shit, you're so right. And just so she like gave me this homework to come up with, or to sort of like dig through my life, like just going back and finding the things that brought me joy and trying them out, or contemplating whether or not I should pick them up again, for example. And that's probably one that was like a wake up call. It was like a wow moment for me, because I'm adulting so well and I'm doing all these different things and I'm being very active, yet I wasn't. I was just surviving and I didn't even notice it until she pointed it out.
I felt what you said in my soul. I have a tendency to make everything work or project related. You know, I think it's a whole society thing. We have to constantly tie our value with external stuff. Yeah, I think it's one of my biggest struggles as well, like trying to be like, okay, how do I rest? You know, hobbies included. I can just go and watch movies or like sit at the ceiling and be like, why am I not productive now? But I think we'll just answer the question because I'm going off the rails. How to feel safe with humans. That sounds like I'm an alien. Like conflict, it's not the end of the world. Saying no, it's not the end of the world. My system was always like, and still sometimes is like, oh, someone wants to talk about something, or I want, and this will be a big boom, a big violent boom, where it's nothing. It's like my nervous system is speaking from the past, like, go away, you little shit, let me live. But yeah, I think, yeah, many tools around how to build healthy connections. I think it's the main big lesson, something that has changed my life, because for me, like, it was mainly about people and how to connect.
Definitely resonate with that as well. The recovering people pleaser part, I definitely am one of those as well. It's hard, right? Because it feels so natural, I think. It's just how we are, it's how we're built, and to have to like learn how to not do that anymore has been and is and will be forever hard for us. So I feel you, and yeah.
And unlearn all this bullshit around us. And when I realized, you know, that people pleasing thing is not mine, it's as a costume, it was both like painful in a way because you get attached even to the bad parts, but it's freeing also because like, wow, I can change that. I can like make a real effort around that.
I was watching Renee Rapp, where she was mentioning her struggle with like eating. She started the conversation by saying there's no addiction that is like easy. What she wanted to say that was unique to eating disorders is that it's not something you can just walk away from. It's not something you can, you know, just decide not to do. That's what makes it 1,000 times harder for the person who's struggling, because, and again, like I mentioned earlier, it's not saying that any other disorder is easier, but for example, you can avoid alcohol if that is your issue. You can avoid substances to the best of your ability if that's what you struggle with. But with eating, you need to do that, like no
a
matter
basic
how
need.
hard. Yeah, you try. It comes 3 times a day, and you need to either force yourself to, or to force yourself not to sort of deal with this thing, with your addiction. And I really resonated with that, A, because I've had in the past struggle with eating, but also because of like the people pleasing and stuff as well. It just comes so naturally, right? It's not something where we're going, oh, I'm going to people please right now. It's like it just happens, and it's quite hard. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting way of putting it. And it's like, oh wow.
Digestion with people pleasing has a very, very big connection with, we can talk to another episode, but yeah, it has a lot to do with like emotional nourishment as well. It's amazing how the body and the mind are so interconnected, and we keep sleeping on it. But it's cool. So thank you for coming to this another chaotic, chronically cubed episode, TED Talk. We're definitely going to talk about therapy again and mental health. If you have any suggestions that you would like to see, any topic that you would like to talk about it, or if you just want to randomly come in here and talk with us, we would be more than happy. Thank you for coming.